Alright, so I've been living on and off with a Palm Pre Plus for the last 2 weeks, and thought I'd kind of give my impressions on WebOS and the Pre Plus. I actually had a Pre with Sprint that I used for a while and returned it because didn't really care for it. The build quality, it wasn't very snappy. Both of those concerns were addressed when Verizon and Palm unveiled the Pre Plus, which basically has twice the RAM, twice the storage, and is sort of improved slider mechanism, which is really debatable. And so that I'd give some impressions. First impressions of the Pre Plus after using it for 5 or 6 days pretty solidly. The keyboard is awful. I think some people try to parse and kind of give it a better review on the keyboard than is necessary. The keyboard is awful. Especially, I think what exacerbates this is I have really long fingers. So being able to, grasp the device and type on it, not pleasant at all. The keys are very tiny, right on top of each other. It's hard to really get a rhythm going. For me, the best typing experience is really one-handed, one thumb at a time. Trying to two-thumb it like you would on a BlackBerry or like I do on my Droid just does not work at all. You can download an on-screen keyboard via freeware. It is also pretty bad. The screen is pretty small, so imagine really trying to type an on screen with like a regular BlackBerry screen, which I think average around like 2.8 inches maybe. The 3.1 inch screen of the Pre is pretty similar, at least in size. It's actually smaller horizontally if you're holding the phone in the usual portrait mode. So keyboard is pretty awful on the Pre. The sliding mechanism, it's weird because the phone is kind of banana shaped. So instead of sliding, flat on a plane like the Droid does, the Pre kind of slides and splits in two pieces, and it's kind of awkward getting the phone to open. The only real consistent way to get it to open smoothly is to use the screen. Put your fingers on the screen and push up that way. Nowhere near as slick a move as the Droid. I mean, the Droid is a really easy one-handed, you just push and it's open. The Pre is not that easy to open, but the build quality on the Verizon model is much better than the one I had with Sprint. The WebOS is gorgeous. The starkest contrast for me was the calendar application. If you open up Calendar in Android and Calendar in WebOS, you'll see what I'm talking about. The size of the Pre limits if you have multiple events going on at a time. I noticed that it cut off a lot or even all of the information, and that's really down to screen size more than anything. But the calendar looks much better on the Pre than it does on my Droid, and it integrates a lot better with Gmail, I would have to say. I like that on the Pre Plus and WebOS in general, you have an consolidated inbox. So where I have 3 Gmail accounts, instead of having to toggle between them, I have one inbox that pulls all of my Gmail accounts, actually all of my mail accounts together in one place, so that I don't have to worry about, flipping back and forth between them. So that's pretty neat. Same thing, iOS 4 with the iPhone does the same thing. So Gmail, Google with Android, there's really no excuse, as far as I'm concerned. When there's a feature, when somebody does something with a Google service, the person doing it the best should be Google. So, like if you can search your Google Calendar on an iPhone, but you can't on an Android phone, at least not stock. You have to download a plugin and run that app and give that app permission to search your calendar, which requires extra steps. Out of the box, a Google phone should function the best with Google services. No ifs, ands, or buts. So that's really nice on the Pre, having that consolidated inbox. Some of the features, the Pre does not have digital zoom on the camera, which is kind of a bummer, which is partly down to the megapixels. The camera is only 3 megapixels, but in day shots it actually shot better pictures than the Droid, which has 5 megapixels. That advantage kind of goes away in low light and shots that require the flash. The Pre kind of struggles. The flash doesn't seem to be as strong as the one on the Droid, but it takes really good daytime photos. Also records video. You can trim video like you do on the iPhone, like you can't do on Android. So pretty neat there. The Pre is a much shorter phone. It's a little bit thicker than the Droid. It does run down the battery fairly quickly. You can reduce that by reducing how often, if at all, Twitter and Facebook are using the data, polling for new updates, and but because the battery is pretty tiny, it also recharges very quickly. So you can go from having a nearly dead battery to having a completely full battery fairly quickly. I don't like there's a little flap on the micro USB port on the side of the phone. I don't like that flap. It helps aesthetically that there's, you know, uninterrupted when the flap is in place, but it makes charging pretty. It's a hassle. You have to slide open the phone to get the flap open. If you're using the touch tone charger, that's fine. But I charge at home, at work, and in my car. I can only have a touch tone charger. I only have one at home, so it's a little bit of a pain to charge in the car or at the office. But I really can't decide which phone to keep. I keep switching back and forth as my primary phone because there are things that I love about the Droid and things I love about the Pre that make it hard to decide which one I want to use on a day-to-day basis. Droid has free Google Maps navigation, whereas if I want the same thing on Verizon with the Pre, I have to sign up for a $10 a month VZ Navigator service. So there are definitely pros and cons. If you're not a heavy emailer, I can definitely recommend the Pre Plus. I like it a lot. The way you interact with gestures in the gesture area, being able to pull up the launcher even when you're in a program. So if you're, say, reading email, I can hold my finger on the gesture area, kind of lift, raise up, and select one of my 4 icons or open the full launcher. So that's pretty neat. So it's definitely a cool OS. I feel like when they bring out WebOS 2.0 and new hardware, they'll be able to really compete with the big boys. Definitely steal more market share away from Microsoft, probably Android and iPhone too. I think that with new hardware, my biggest gripes are with the hardware. And if you were to put WebOS on the Droid, like literally this form factor with WebOS, it would kill. The keyboard's much better. The screen is nicer. I think it would be great, but until they get that hardware, it's kind of it's a close third behind the iPhone OS and Android. But like I said, they're close enough, and I like it enough that I can't decide. And I'm actually going to go switch my Pre over with Verizon because they're the same smartphone plans. I can literally just enter the IMEI number or the MEID and activate another phone, and you can do that, you know, on a daily basis. You can just switch phones. So I'm feeling like I need a little bit of Pre in my life, so I'm going to do that now. But I will talk to you later. I may do a little demo of WebOS for those of you who don't really know and understand kind of the gestures and stuff. It's pretty neat when you get into working multiple applications. So look forward to that later. I'll see you guys later.